This year, I'm going for the Appalachian Trail record. And I made a pretty cool video, at least I liked it, that I put out this past week on YouTube. So I'm going to play that here, and then we're going to get right into the episode from there. So if you're listening on Spotify, you can just open up the app and it'll be playing the video version of that right now. If you're on YouTube and you already saw it, you can just skip ahead to about the 4-minute mark and listen to the episode from there. All right, Appalachian Trail record. Here we go. I'm going to be putting out videos every Wednesday on YouTube. So if you just want to play them in the background, give me some more plays, subscribes, likes, love that. All right, here we go. Today we have my big announcement. The rise was just insane. I was in GQ, I was in Sports Illustrated, the AP published something that ran in most of the newspapers around the country.
He is a guy who has done insane trails.
With us today is a man who has set speed records on the Colorado Trail, the Arizona Trail, the John Muir Trail, and many more.
5-year-olds attempting to hike the PCT, the Appalachian Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail all in 1 year.
As a reminder, Jeff has over 30,000 backpacking miles under
calendar
his
year triple crowner, an FKT phenomenon, author,
he
and
just
star of
did
the documentary
an
Free Outside.
FKT successful attempt on the JMT.
And carried them in my pack, and they just thawed out, and that's
the
what
mom
I
with
ate
two
for the
cubs, and
majority
she
of the
just
long
bluff
trail.
charged at me a couple times and got on its hind legs.
Who is one of the most accomplished hikers, trail runners, and unsupported FKT individuals in the world.
I didn't have any money, but I had this thing that I loved doing, and it was saving me from depression. I felt fulfilled, loved it, being out there. I had no money, but I was getting all the records that I went after. I got the Arizona Trail, the Pinhoti Trail, the Long Trail, and plans to go for even more. Like, the rise was pretty incredible. Got flown out to talk about a TV show, approached about a couple other TV shows, even shot a pilot. Like, things were crazy. And then COVID ruined my goal of going after the Appalachian Trail record and the Pacific Crest Trail record.
My name is Jeff Garmeyer, and my trail name is Legend, and I was planning on running in the Barkley Marathons this year and attempting the Pacific Crest Trail and Appalachian Trail. The Barkley Marathons are canceled. All my travel plans are also canceled. Stay safe out there, everybody, and maybe we will see each other on the trails in the future.
But when COVID hit, I ended up working at a grocery store. Things kind of tumbled back to earth, and that is fine. I got to build a more sustainable, more realistic life of coaching, going after things. I have a bi-weekly podcast, or twice weekly, maybe that's how you say it. But yeah, life actually changed a lot. I still got the John Muir Trail record a couple years ago, but that nature in my 20s of just only having a backpack, not having a home address, and traveling around and going after records, that feels so long ago.
Yep, it's dirt.
I want to go back and try to do the Appalachian Trail record. And I think the big one for me is the Appalachian Trail. It's certainly faster now, but I think I can do it. That goal never really left, and I've been thinking about it for a long time. In order to get there, some sections of the trail are not even open because of Hurricane Helene, but I would go after the Appalachian Trail record in August, probably, southbound. And so that is the plan.
Maybe we will see each other on the trails in the future.
How do people cover 250 miles? How do they run a 250-mile race? Well, they don't.
Power hiking, and it's taking the nation by storm.
There's a lot of walking. Have you ever heard of power hiking. Well, anyways, I am signed up for Cocodona 250. This will be the 5th year that I've done it, so I have 1,000 miles worth of Cocodona and 3 6th-place finishes. Along with that, I am on the wait list for a secret race that might rhyme with Markley Marathons. And I just signed up for Bighorn 100 because I didn't get into High Lonesome. I had a lot of tickets, and I don't even think they counted my trail work hours, but that's okay. I'm not going to complain. And then AT, FKT, self-supported, southbound, starting in August. I started planning that. But today's episode, I'm going to get into Big Bend. Why? What does that have to do with anything? Well, one way to train for FKTs and these really long races, which are pretty much the races that I'm best at. I'm actually sneaky good at 50 milers, but I have 35,000 miles of backpacking under my belt. And so this movement style really works. I've used the through hikes like the Ozark Highland Trail to train for Cocodona in the past. That was probably like the breakthrough year for me. And then beyond that, I think just time on feet and using that ultra shuffle to your advantage and accepting that even the winner of Cocodona is hiking.
Power hiking
30 to 40% of the time, at least. And so that means they're only running about 60% of the time. So it's just really important to practice that. And why I throw in Big Bend in here and using this preamble before it is Big Bend was one of those like high mileage weeks, but really with lots of backpacking, hiking, exploring. And I think that's kind of the best way to train for these things because it's engaging for your mind. You get used to being out there, especially if you can find a place with no cell service, and you just become content in the adventure and doing what you're doing out there. Now, this is the Free Outside podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Garmeyer. I have like 20 FKTs, a few trail race wins. I get paid a little as a professional athlete. I've written a book. There's a movie about me. It's all called Free Outside, so I keep it really easy. You can, I also started a Substack this week. I think it's freeoutside.substack.com. It's just, it's just going to be a newsletter that's in my own voice and shares all the things that come out every week, because every week I produce 2 podcasts alone, solo, no one else. Well, I usually have guests on, and I put out a YouTube video. I usually write a thing or two. Sometimes there's something cool that I put out on social media. Sometimes, what else? Find usually some cool studies, gear, that a good deal or something. Like right now, Normal has a pretty good sale on the Tamir shoes if you're into those kind of things. So just like bringing those things up. I don't get anything from it, but I like to spread the love. Recently I shared about the Agravic Speed Trail, which it's not the super shoe from Adidas, but it's got really good foam, good bounce, rebound. I think it's a pretty good shoe. So I mentioned that. And then, breakdown of what happened on the pod. I have a lot of good guests coming up. I'm going to talk to someone in Ojai, California, who knows a lot, or we're just going to talk about the fires, which is really sad in California. I was just out there 3 weeks ago. If you listen to my Los Padres episode, just backpacking through the wilderness, did a 140-mile route connecting the 2 wild and scenic rivers in Southern California, the Sespe and the Sisquoc. It was actually really tough. I got a lot of poison oak. My skin is still recovering, but yeah, California and Southern California, I think there's so many hidden gems. I really have spent a ton of time down there, living with my friend John Airborne, who I went on the trip with. And it's just really sad what's happening to California. Like there was a fire a month ago, which people don't talk about as well. And this might be the most loss in a fire ever. And so I'm going to talk to someone. We're going to get into that. It'll be probably just more of an informational episode, but also entertaining of like, why is this happening? And he has a background in science and policy and climate and stuff. So that'll be really good. I'm going to talk to someone about sodium, and there's 2 different types. I've learned a lot recently, and I just wanted to share that with you for free since I paid for a sodium test and paid for a lot of things, and I think you can get a lot of that stuff for free. And then what else? I'm talking to a Canadian national team, big backyard member, finalist, champion. I don't know. So that'll be really fun. But they're all coming this week when I'm interviewing them. So we're doing another solo episode, and I really need to get this Big Bend episode out. So this is the Free Outside Show. How you can support the show is subscribe also and rate. Give us a 5-star rating just on Apple and Spotify. And on Apple, if you write a review or a comment, I will read those at some point when I get to that. All right, I'm Jeff Garmeyer. This is the Free Outside Show. Let's go. Okay, why Big Bend? Well, every year there's like this week between Christmas and New Year's, or now it's like Christmas and January 5th where nothing happens. And I try to squeeze in like a vacation or this trip to somewhere that's kind of hard to get to, or just where you don't really need service because nothing happens. Pretty much no one needs you. Nothing is going on this time of year. And I was talking with my girlfriend. We had a spreadsheet because she's a planner. I'm not. And we were going over like places we could go. And it was just like, Big Bend is so hard to get to. And I was like, that's why we should go. Because we don't know when else in our life we're going to be able to like drive 3 hours each way, fly to Midland, Texas. Like, it was not easy to get to, but that's how we settled on Big Bend. Also, if you're watching this, it'll be a lot of video clips in there. It's going to be a similar style to Los Padres, where it's going to be some voiceover talking here and then some videos dropped in. But if you're just a listener, that's cool too. I think you'll get the gist of it. So we flew we did Christmas. I think one of the most recent podcasts I did, the award show, I talked with Derek and we had a family wedding, a courthouse wedding. I was the ring bearer, 25 years apart, for my aunt. So that was pretty cool. Then we got on a plane and took a red eye down to Midland, Texas. And that was a choice. It is hard to sleep on planes for me, and so probably got a couple hours of sleep, and then we landed there and groggy and everything, picked up a rental car, and boom, we were off to the national park. Drove down there, and we rented or booked campsites for each night. It just made it simpler not knowing too much about the national parks, as opposed to I've spent a ton of time in Death Valley, and there's some little tips and tricks and secrets on where you can either kind of disperse camp or get away without having to book more of an official campsite. But we didn't know anything about Big Bend other than diving deep into some message boards. So we booked everything. We went to the east side of the park first and hit up a hot spring that evening. It was pretty awesome, actually. You could walk right across the tiny, really low, shallow Rio Grande, not so grand, into Mexico, which I think is illegal, but I did it. Don't tell Donnie T. And yeah, we soaked in that, came back, and then our real adventure life, everything began the next day when we ran this big route. So the goal of being down in Big Bend was to get a lot of miles, explore the whole park, and just kind of kick the year off with a good start with a lot of things that I'm training for, trying to be like healthier and in pretty good shape, and consistency is really the king. And so that was kind of the goal. So the first night we saw javelinas.
Here they come out of the bushes every morning, these boys. That one just pooped. Nice, so did I. Right on, brother.
They're so weird. They're like devil pigs, and they just like walk around in a group of maybe like 20. And a group of javelinas is actually called a squadron. I just fact checked this, and that's pretty cool. Also, these javelinas, I guess some people say they're aggressive, but I don't really think they attack humans. I just think they're territorial, and they've attacked a lot of dogs. But mostly when I've seen them, it's been on the Arizona Trail, either in training or during the FKT or the Great Western Loop or something. And they're like really freaky at night because they're kind of gray. They're 50 pounds. They kind of waddle around, and there's a bunch of them. And they look sort of like from a horror movie, like someone sending a message to you that do not pass. These things are devilish and will doom you. We woke up the next morning, beautiful sunrise, had coffee. I chose to buy like Folgers or something because I didn't pack any coffee, and it was terrible, so I just had to fight through.
Day one, after that red eye, we slept for like 12 hours. Now we're gonna go run something. but wow, red eyes are tough.
When I went backpacking in California like a month ago or 3 weeks ago or something, I didn't bring any coffee, and I think that was nicer than the bad coffee that I did bring. So woke up and the plan was the Marufa Vega Trail. It was like, let's say 13 miles or something, and it was kind of I call it a balloon.
Today we have the 15-mile Marufa Vega Trail, but first some coffee. Man, I think I'm at the age where I should just get better coffee. I showed up here, flew down here after 3 weeks of travel without a good method of making coffee. So this is just the crappy instant stuff from the store. And it is not satisfying. It probably has caffeine, so hooray on that. It'd be cool to see a bear. I didn't see one on my backpacking trip recently. No better place than a national park. What will today bring? We will see.
You go out, you do this loop, you circle around by the Rio Grande. It's pretty quaint. Not a lot of people are out there, and just really good views. You can get down to the water, so we got down there, and of course I threw a rock into Mexico because, baseball player arm, I'm able.
On the Marufa Vega Trail, we are doing a trail run, but I would say the run is definitely in quotations. It's very rugged, and all the rocks are loose, so you're just slipping and sliding downhill, and uphill you are also slipping and sliding.
And it was fun. I mean, it was kind of rugged. There was some like quartz crystal veins in the rock. It was pretty unique. The area out there is just so different. Like, it's brown, dead, not a lot happening, and then all of a sudden there's the river and it's green down there. So it was, it's just like a different type of environment than I'm used to. And so we finished our run, got back, and then cooked up some dehydrated meals. So my family's been very big in the dehydrated meal game. I think my mom has been in a couple magazines for writing about her dehydrated meals or recipes or whatever. And I also own a dehydrator and dehydrated probably like 80% of my meals for the calendar year Triple Crown. So it's just like a thing we do. The thru hikers, I don't know if you've seen them on like social media. They have like 2 million followers. Yeah, well, I was dehydrating before it was cool, or before you could get millions of people. And I just am not that passionate about taking a bunch of videos. So oops, could have got famous. But anyways, cooked up every night, cooked up a dehydrated meal. Saved a lot of money there. It was actually good. We only had like this tiny pot and stove, so it was a little tricky. Sometimes it would overflow, but that's part of backpacking. You got to figure out how to wash your stuff in the tiniest sink where it says like, don't wash dishes here. And it's like, well, if I can't wash them here, where am I supposed to wash them? And so then the next day I found this backpacking route that was like 35 miles. It called the Outer Mountain Loop. The problem is it has no water, so that makes things tricky. Actually, one spring was flowing, but was not going to depend on that. And by flowing, I mean like hints of water, like a trickle, like the lightest trickle you can imagine. We started this route. Actually, we had to drive all the way up and over and around the mountain up into the Chizos mountain area, Chizos Visitor Center, whatever that is. And that's where we stashed some water. So we stashed 2 gallons. Then we drove all the way around to this ranch, I think, something ranch overlook, whatever. I'll probably write the name into this video, or I'll do a write-up on the whole thing. And so we went there and we started, and from there, that was like one of the low points of the trip, so we had to climb straight up.
We are on the Outer Mountain Trail, and in the first 5.5 miles, we have gained 2,500 feet of uphill. So it's been pretty constant, and I think the whole loop, at least the variation that I came up with, we are only going to gain like 7,000 feet or so. So a lot early on. It's also interesting because I usually backpack and do this kind of stuff alone, but I'm with my girlfriend, and I'm learning how to figure out when to take a break. So I don't really know, because it's different doing things with other people, but it's fun and cool and nice to split up the tent.
It was like a few 1,000-foot climb over shoulder of a pass, kind of got up on the rim, because Big Bend, it's like pretty flat and rolling hills. And then there's this mountainous section where there's like Emory Peak in this Jesus Mountain Center. That's where it's like really fast and exciting versus most of the other park. The pace is quite slow. So if you're into slow mornings and slow everything, this one is for you. So here we are. We're like 7,000 feet up. Should be like a 35-mile loop. And I think that I should stop. We can have our first break. Probably pushing it a little too hard, but I'm not a very good gauge of things like this. Oops. But we got up there and it was a long climb. It was hot. It was like 75 during the day and cooled off into the 30s at night. And I kind of felt bad because I started realizing that maybe how many miles I proposed we were doing on day one was actually off. I thought we might be doing like 12. Turns out we did like 17. I don't know how much Allison loved that, but you know, that's sort of my planning style of I have the perfect route. I don't know all the details yet, which is why when I do an FKT, I really like to have done the trail ahead of time. So like the AT FKT this year, I have already done the Appalachian Trail and pretty deep into research, but it just really helps because I'm such a visual, mental pictures in my mind type of person. Is I can visualize most the spots on the trail, like literally spots, mile markers, areas, states, all kinds of stuff. So that's how my mind works, but I can't look and read something and really comprehend it very well. I mean, my brain, I think, is a little broken in some of those ways. But anyways, back to the story. So we got up high and then we had to drop all like 2,000 feet back down to Jesus Mountain Center. And by the time we got there, we'd already gone 10 miles and it was like, well, if we're climbing Emory Peak, that's another 5 and then another one to our campsite. So it was like, it's going to be 16 or 17 miles and we planned on 12. So oopsies. So we filled up water there and then it was a climb straight up Pinnacle Pass. We got some water, a resupply of water down at Chisos Visitor Center. Now we're headed up Emory Peak and I'm sort of realizing as part of this modified outer mountain loop, I may have been off on the mileage today. So luckily, Allison is a trooper because what I thought might be a 12-mile day is going to be like 16. And we're also carrying like 4 liters of water each because we're dry camping. Hooray. It was like one of those slow climbs where the switchbacks are pretty long and very much like the Grand Canyon. There were people out there with like one single water bottle, like a little tiny 12-ounce one. There were families that were moving so slow and it was just like, oh my gosh, they're not going to get done with this hike until like 10 p.m. And we timed it perfectly. I would say that it was meant to be or that I chose for it to happen like this, but in no way did that play a role. Pinnacle Pass. Next up, Emory Peak. We hit Emory Peak, the high point of the national park, at like 7 p.m. Time was really weird out here, but we'll get to that in a second. But we hit it right at sunset, so it was beautiful. The sun was setting, got like 360-degree views of all the surrounding areas. You could obviously see into Mexico. You could see all the corners of the park. And the park is really distinct. You can see things like mule's ears. You can see the Santa Elena Canyon, which was a highlight. You could see the Marufa Vega like cliffs, El Pico, which is this little notch in the canyon wall, more on the east side. So it was beautiful, really good timing. Then skirted back down. It was a pretty rugged climb. The last 100 feet were definitely a scramble, I would say. So it was kind of fun, and I don't think Allison loves climbing, so we made it work, got to the top. Emory Peak success. Luckily we could store our bags in bear boxes provided by the Park Service, and we whipped on up there. Now back another mile to the campsite. Dropped down and went into Boot Canyon. We had Boot Canyon number 3. That was our campsite. So camped there. It was already dark and night, but it wasn't as cold as I thought it might be. Food was great. I didn't even bring pants, mostly on accident, but luckily I didn't even need them with this trip. And then Woke up the next morning. It's the morning of day 2, and it doesn't get light here till like 8 a.m., but slept in until 8 a.m. because it didn't get light. Now using a composting toilet. Check it out. It's pretty cool. It does all the nature's work for you. Look at this bad boy. Me and Dr. Compost. Boom. And then we'll be on our merry way. 17 miles today. And deer were everywhere. The whitetails, how their tail stands up, those are always fun because out in the northwest where I grew up, we have mule deer. So, and here in Montana a lot too. So that was like a little new wrinkle. Check out this view. Wow. The rest of the day we kind of dropped down off the not bad for Texas rim and from the mountainous area, and it was pretty flat, rolling hills, nothing too spectacular actually. But the fun thing about this park is it is really set up for, like, I would say they have a method. So about halfway through our loop, there was this bear box, and there's water in there. People stash water for their backpacking trip. We could have done it there, but it was a 90-minute drive, I think, each way, and I was not about that. I'm more of the mindset, let's each carry 4 liters. I think we carried 9 liters total, and just make that work rather than drive 3 hours. But they also had some emergency water. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you that, but it's just like a really well set up national park in that respect of everything feels fairly easy. The pace is pretty slow, but that also makes it feel pretty easy. So we passed that, saw plenty of bear sign, but nothing no bears or anything. Here's the sign of a bear. Where could he be? I don't see him anywhere. Must have moved on. Got back to the car, and after 28 hours or something, we completed our journey right back where we started. Hiking loops. It's such a weird hobby. And then we whipped on over to wherever we camped that next night, which, hold on, Cottonwood, that's it. It was Cottonwood Campground. It was one of those places that I think every time the river comes up, it floods. The river was way down as compared to normal. Like, you could walk in one of the sections, I think you could just rock hop from the US to Mexico because the Rio Grande is the border there. So it was, really low. We thought about maybe kayaking, but the river was low. Didn't even see anyone kayaking. So that was probably a sign that there was not much to be done kayaking out there. Also, in these videos, you probably noticed that I have a Sun hoodie on. It's a Janji Sun hoodie. Also, this is a Janji shirt I have on. They are a proud sponsor of the podcast. So check out Janji. I also really like the Vortex gloves. I've been mentioning them because they just are normal gloves, but then they have this wind chill that rolls out and goes over your hand. Also, they got hats. I've wore the shorts this whole trip as well. Yeah, really good stuff. I got into them just because of the shorts, because I really like the pockets and how the shorts wear not much chafe and they hold up really well. So Janji, JANJI.com, check it out and tell them we sent you. Love their stuff. So when we got back to Cottonwood and more javelinas, who would have thought?
Here they come out of the bushes every morning, these boys. That one just pooped. Nice, so did I. Right on, brother. It's always weird when an animal stares at you while it's pooping. It's like your motivation.
We're like across the entire national park. It was a cool side because you could see the Santa Elena Canyon, which if you've ever been to the Bob Marshall Wilderness, it's like the Chinese wall. It rises like a couple thousand feet maybe. And I kept joking that was the border wall that Trump was building.
This is the U.S. Mexico border. At first I thought this was the wall that they were building, but apparently that's just a mountain range. This apparently is our heavily fortified border, so make of that whatever you will.
It was not. It's a natural feature, but it was carved by the Rio Grande and it's spectacular. So javelinas that night, cooking, play cards, the classic camping stuff. There wasn't much service in the park, which was really nice to be disconnected. And I think this night was actually New Year's or the night before. Who even knows? Doesn't matter. The next day we woke up and it was our exploration day. So we went to Santa Elena Canyon, which highlight, it's incredible, with like a mile trail round trip. You just see a really deep canyon, the river just slowly floating through, and just like giant canyon walls on both sides. You see like massive rocks that have fallen or have been carved out of a canyon. It was really cool. So pretty underrated thing. It was also a madhouse by the time we left. So we went there right when the sun rose and decided to make coffee at the trailhead and then hike in. So we did that. We were all set up for success, all caffeinated. Allison drinks tea. Went in, saw that, and then on the way out, it was just like people everywhere. We didn't even have to get our feet wet. The river was so low. And you could see people like just rock hopping into Mexico from there. It was pretty wild. And so from there, it was like, there's 2 different run hikes that we wanted to do. So there's some petroglyphs at I think it's called the Old Chimney. So ran out there, saw the ancient writings. And there were also these like big old holes where like a mortar, I think it's a mortar, or is it a pestle? One of them, the one that's like a big bowl where people crunch stuff up. There was, that was out. They had a bunch of those. So it was like definitely an ancient work site where they kept some notes and writing, which was pretty cool. It was kind of funny. We ran out there and then we searched around one of these chimneys. Nothing. After like 10 minutes, we looked at the other one, writing all over it, like couldn't miss it. So we just pointed at the wrong one. But we found it, ran back to the car. And then my favorite thing is we went to Mule's Ears, where the view from the viewpoint is actually better than the trail. Just a little beta for you. But we ran 2 miles out and 2 miles back, and the view disappeared. It went to Mule Ear Spring, which had some poison oak, which, if you listen to the Los Padres episode, I am very allergic and I do not like. But we got to the spring and it was like, well, we can't even see Mule's Ears. Let's run back and actually just look at it from the viewpoint. But that was my favorite thing. It sort of looked like in Lord of the Rings, the 2 towers, the big old things with the Eye of Sauron between them. So I sound nerdy. It sort of looked like where that would be. So that was really cool. That was a highlight. And so after that, we went back to Cottonwood. It was going to be our last night. So we had our last night, whipped up some food, and then the next morning we left. We went to, there's a ghost town out there. Well, it's advertised as a ghost town. We drove to it on our way back to Midland, and the ghost town was full of people. People lived there. It was the least ghost town that you've ever did here. And there was like a couple informational plaques, which I love. I love learning about things, especially dates. I love numbers, love them. But it was full of people. People were literally playing pickleball across the street from the ghost town graveyard. So I would say 1 star. We went to that, and then it was like a 3-hour monotonous drive back to Midland, Texas. And when I say monotonous, nothing happening. There wasn't even service most of it. The like plains or roads, it was like West Texas. Like you could see for so long. The only thing going on out there is nothing. And so we finished that drive, got to Midland, had a hotel, got some nice tacos because you gotta enjoy the Tex-Mex flair, and then woke up at like 5 a.m. and flew back to Bozeman the next day. Landed in Bozeman and it was snowing. So that was the Big Bend trip. It was pretty good. I would say really cool national park to visit. I would also just be prepared to kind of just be out there. Like the stores really suck. There's not a lot going. There's not a lot going in the national park. There's plenty to see and plenty to do, but the pace of life is like a retirement community. So if you're looking for excitement, partying, and flair, probably not your spot. I enjoyed it. The natural features are cool, and I love rocks. Autistic. Rocks are awesome, and numbers. But so there's just plenty of that, and backpacking and miles and stuff. So I think that's kind of where we're at. the plan on things moving forward. I told you got a lot of good interviews coming up. Also, I'm working on something to interview someone going for the calendar year Triple Crown and maybe a past calendar year Triple Crowner. We have a ton of stuff coming down the pike. Just wanted to do a solo episode because this has, what do you say? It's been something in my craw. I don't know. I was trying to come up with a Southern saying. I once wrote a Southern sayings generator. I coded it just because I was teaching myself how to code, and that seemed like a fun way to learn the skill. It was, I think the inputs were like, if you're like as hungry as a cat on your neighbor's porch, or something like that. Like it just had two inputs of like animal here and location here or something, and then like as hungry as or something like that. Anyways, that was extremely off topic. So I'm putting together things for the Appalachian Trail. That'll be the A-goal. The other A-goal is probably Cocodona. But other than that, things are rolling. Check out that Patreon. We do have a patreon.com where bonus content comes out every Wednesday. Check out that Substack, the newsletter, freeoutside.substack.com. We're on social media now. Free Outside Podcast has his social media page. I put clips up there so you might like it. Also, what can really help is on YouTube. If you just throw up the episode and just let it play in the background, you can put it on mute. I mean, gotta get those watch hours, don't you know? My shower started leaking, so that sucks. I gotta figure out how to fix that. I guess this is just like therapy with me telling you things. All right, let's wrap this Big Bend episode up. I hope you liked it. We have lots coming. 5-star ratings, reviews really help. Let's try that again. Stay elite, my friends.